When you were younger and as you were growing up, or maybe even now, as you've been through things and you've been abused and you've been in a relationship with a narcissistic person or a pathologically disordered person, did you ever feel empty? Did they ever make you feel empty inside? Like somebody would speak to you in such a derogatory manner that you would just feel this void in you. It's like you didn't have an answer, you didn't know how to come back. And facing it sort of felt like, yeah, it felt like really, really empty. That's the only way I can describe it. And I just watched a video there about um, borderline personality disorder. Actually, not that I'm saying borderline, but it's very interesting whenever you understand the concept of borderline personality disorder and you look at object relations and why they are emotionally unstable. They're on what psychology would determine as being approach avoidance on a repetition compulsion, very much like the narcissist that's in this avoidance of the self. And whenever they get angry, it's because they feel sad, okay, and they can't face that sadness. And it's interesting because there's a real lesson in here. Because for the borderline to face that sadness, it feels like they're falling into an abyss, like a real dark void where they can't come back from it. And there's a reason for that. And we can look at object relations because it means they've got an inability to self regulate. And that then means that they don't have a good enough internal sense of mother inside of them or a caregiver, somebody who had that right brain loving connection with them. So the sense of falling into the abyss, to not being able to face themselves, to not being able to face that sadness, it's the anger is an ego defense against that because there is there is no good sense of mother inside to have that ability to face that sadness. Now, I, like most post narcissistic abuse survivors, have faced lots of sadness, and I've cried a lot. So I don't sort of fit in with that characterization of a borderline personality disorder. But it was very profound for me to hear because there have been times in my life where I felt so objectively negative about myself. I've been very hypercritical all my life of my own internal self, how I measured up to other people I felt lesser than. And it gives a very clear indicator on those little moments where I felt that void, where I sort of didn't know how to respond or act or how to defend myself, or um, it shows that lack of sense of self. And the lack of sense of self comes from that lack of sense of good enough internal object and the identification with the bad object in our life. And that's a real positive for us, believe it or not, although it sounds very negative. The ability to be able to identify with the bad object in your life shows that you have a balanced emotional structure, i.e., you can love and feel sad, you can, be angry, and you can also learn how to reconcile and bring emotions back down again so you can self regulate. But there will be moments and little indicators along the way in our life that are going to indicate that our attachment style to other people is predicated on the basis that we always worry about others seeing us, as we feel, I suppose. And this is where I think for somebody who has an empathetic structure, I don't use the word empath because it's not a thing. And it's not a thing. We need to stop it because it's black and white thinking. And we have to stop doing the black and white thinking. As somebody who holds empathy in their body, it leaves us in a sort of position where we will soak up all those things as well as being able to feel them for ourselves. And as we heal and go through these things, and we start to understand what our emotions actually are for and how to use them effectively, i.e., not against yourself and also for the benefit of you, then we can start to understand how these little gaps in our lives, that at the time we put down and buried, but internalized and thought of it as being us. Ego defenses that were born out of object relations failures. Slight failures in our object relations were our inability to understand our parent because of their actions and their inability to regulate their own emotions, projectively identified that back into us as children, and our reaction to that is one of denial and repression. And if it's really bad, we'll split it off and it'll get buried. And that is the essence of our sort of trauma bond to our past. And it's this that gets excited and ignited in narcissistic relationships. It's this bond that's held deeply to our own object relations failures with our parents, to the people who created the original deep wound, because there's no deeper wounding than one from a parent. It's way deeper than anything that you'll get from an external relationship. A wounding from a parent as a child has such detrimental consequences on our attachment styles and our resilience to trauma in a bad way. Peace out.